Hello, this is a recording of a workshop that I've developed on how to process your email both efficiently and effectively. So you're managing it and it's not managing you. As our volume of email has increased, I think our attitude to it has also increased, as I think is shown pretty cutely in this cartoon here. And it really has become a tyranny. Email is running our lives. They estimate that 28% of your work week is spent dealing with email. I mean, this is an incredible percentage of the time we spend at work for something that 20 years ago we spent zero time on. There's many things that have increased our workload, but this seems to be one of the major contributors. So is the Nirvana of inbox zero achievable? Well, inbox zero doesn't mean that you have zero emails in your inbox all of the time, but it means that you periodically zero it, whether it's every day or once a week or maybe even once a month. You do actually see these zero emails at some point. Of course, unfortunately, it doesn't last like that very long, and 5 minutes later you have 272, but at least you've seen it as zero, and it's a remarkably satisfying thing to see. So here are my learning objectives for this session. Well, first of all, you to understand why you even need to take control of your inbox, to be able to describe why email does not work effectively as a task manager, which many people use it as, and then be able to list the steps to effectively manage your email. So, true confession time here. How many emails do you have in your work, just your work, inbox at the current time? 0? Maybe under 50, you're doing really well. 50 to 100, not too bad. Up to 500. Up to 1,000. Up to 5,000. Over 5,000. Over 5,000 is a lot of emails to have sitting in your inbox. But you're not alone. Here is a screenshot from one of my colleagues' inboxes. This is her Gmail account, and you see here she had over 12,500 in her inbox, of which she hadn't even opened 1,000 of them. And unfortunately, this isn't her only inbox, because when we look here at her Outlook corporate account, she has another 7,500 that she hasn't opened, and she declined to let me know how many she has in her total inbox. She also confessed that this screenshot was taken a few years ago, that it's much worse now. This is pretty stressful, even if whether it's stressful at a conscious level or stressful at unconscious level. If you have thousands and thousands of emails in your inbox, you don't know what's there. It's like this big hidden boogeyman of tasks that you haven't dealt with, things that you've forgotten, some information that maybe you need, but you don't even know if you need. It's very stressful. So let's think about what your inbox contains. And I'm breaking the contents of your inbox down into categories here, because by thinking about them in categories, it helps you work out how you're going to process them. There's stuff in your inbox that just needs a quick reply, and that's it. Despite good spam filters, we have a lot of junk mail sitting in our inboxes. We have a lot of social stuff. Maybe it's direct communication from friends, but a lot from Facebook or LinkedIn or other social media accounts. Often there are multiple emails a day if you're an active Facebook user that come into your inbox. There are emails that are really tasks. They're telling us that we have to do something, and they're buried there in that inbox. There are emails that pertain to meetings. Perhaps they're a request for a meeting, perhaps they're giving a meeting date that hasn't yet gone into Outlook, or they may be WebEx conference materials, connection data for a meeting, or perhaps the information that we need to read and review or have present at that meeting. There are emails that are just for your information. These are memos from your chairman or from somebody else in your department. Perhaps it's an institutional message. It's something that you just need to read. You need to know about it, but they're just sitting there in your inbox. And finally, there are emails that just contain information either within the body of the email itself or as an attachment that you just need to keep somewhere. You need to be able to store it either on your hard disk or in the cloud. So why do you need to effectively and efficiently process your email? Well, like it or not, an awful lot of our work duties come to us via the medium of email nowadays. And as professional people, We have to be able to process email efficiently and effectively in order to be able to do our jobs. In many institutions, not answering email or not dealing with it is considered a sign of a lack of professionalism. If you don't process your information in a time-efficient manner, you're going to miss a lot of deadlines. People are going to be upset at you, your boss or your colleagues, because things are not being done. I know I sent you an email about this. Oh, I lost it. Maybe you did. Maybe I didn't. Oh, that needed to be done today. I didn't know that. It's going to be lost within your email. If you haven't processed your email efficiently, you're going to miss a lot of deadlines, which is, going to upset a bunch of people. This came from a fairly good paper, and this was just looking at corporate emails. This has nothing to do with your personal account. These are the estimates for 2014. That the average corporate email, even with a spam filter, receives 85, 10 of which are spam, and sends 36. So let's think about how those numbers add up. So this adds up pretty fast. You can end up, even if we're talking about a 5-day work week and just getting maybe 10 on Saturdays and Sundays, this is going to add up to over 21,000 per year. That's a lot of email. At that kind of rate, it really doesn't take much before you are truly drowning in emails. And when this happens, you're wasting a lot of time because you're not dealing with your inbox effectively, you're missing the deadlines, you're losing information you need, you're frustrating your colleagues or your administration, and you're getting stressed. Big inbox and lots of email really does add to your mental stress. So let's come back to why your inbox is not an effective task manager. I have a separate YouTube video that you can search for on effectively using task managers, which is well worth watching if you don't have a good task manager currently. So there are many problems with using your inbox as a task manager. Those emails are not linked to projects. You don't know what project they're associated with. The actual task is buried somewhere in the contents. Rarely does it actually say in the subject of that message what you actually need to do. It doesn't tell you when you've got to do it. It doesn't tell you where you've got to do it. It doesn't tell you how important it is for you to do it. And by the time it's 3 or 4 screens down, it's really out of your visual field and it's out of your mind. It just doesn't work as a task manager. Task managers are specifically set up to be able to deal with many of these issues. If you're using your inbox as a task manager, what do you have to do? You have to keep opening emails, closing emails, open another email, close an email, because you don't remember what's in there. Of course we can't. You've opened, 300 emails since you looked at that one. You can't remember what it's all about. It's a very inefficient way of processing your tasks. Okay, so let's start to go through the steps to help you get to that nirvana of the inbox zero. These do work. I helped somebody who had an inbox of 70,000 using this, and she worked her way through these steps, and she got down to, it took her 6 months to zero it. She decided to work through the whole 70,000 rather than the shortcut I'm going to tell you, but she got there and she's managed to keep it down. So it does work, and it is possible to keep at it as long as you're fairly regimented about this. Well, when your bathtub is getting too full, you can do 2 things. You can reduce the input or you can increase the output, and we need to do both to be able to get down to inbox zero. Let's start by reducing the input. Unsubscribe from everything that you can unsubscribe from that you don't really want to look at. We often think we want to look at these things, and in the end they just kind of pile up and we never do. So unsubscribe. If you have one of these emails that you didn't realize you signed up for when you ordered something from a website, and you could have sworn that you unchecked that box that said please send me emails, but you're still getting them, click on it and unsubscribe from it. It's going to take all of those out. Alternately, you can right click on them and have them marked as junk mail, in which case they're going to go into your junk mail folder, or block sender, in which case they're not going to come in at all. I found that with Outlook, the junk mail filters are not that marvelous, and so when I can, I do unsubscribe from things. What about it's some deals here or coupons that you get, and you never know if you're going to want one. Maybe you want to have all the deals from Southwest somewhere in a folder. So if you want to go on some trip, you can see if anything's come through recently. Then set up a rule. So if you right click on the email in Outlook, and there's similar sort of things you can set up in Gmail, and put create rule. And within the rule, you just step through the instructions and you ask it to transfer all of those that arrive in your inbox to a particular folder and then delete them from your inbox. And you can have a folder that's called coupons or deals or whatever. And it will stick them all in there so you don't lose them. But on the other hand, they're not hanging around in your inbox. Get the social networking stuff out of your inbox. Either have this all going to a different social account and or make a separate folder that says Facebook or LinkedIn or whichever of these you subscribe to. Set up a rule that has them go straight into that folder and miss out your inbox. When you're in the work environment, you shouldn't be checking Facebook every 2 minutes anyway. And if they keep coming up with notifications, that's what you're going to do. And then you can look at them in the evening. You can look at them once a week or once a month, or in my case, never, and answer them as you want. These can be you can get an incredible amount of email just from LinkedIn and Facebook without anything else. Do your colleagues a favor and don't do reply all unless you really need to. We all know how irritating this is when you get this whole train of emails of everyone's going reply all, and you're just, I don't care whether you can come to that meeting or not. Just tell the organizers, don't tell the other 56 million people who are on that list. So don't do reply all unless you really mean it. Also save you getting a lot of trouble when there's somebody on that list who you then write something in that email that perhaps they'd have been better not seeing. Let your colleagues and your admin assistants and secretaries know that they don't need to send you thank you emails every time you send something to them. It's just another email that you have to delete. And this might sound a bit odd in the talk. I'm talking about effectively processing your email, but process it less often. Actually, if you don't reply to your email for 24 hours or even 12 hours, and then if you go away, if you don't do it for several days, you actually have less email coming in. Email begets email. I recently went on a trip and actually did not look at my email for 7 days, which was the first time in many years, and nobody seriously thought I could do it. And I should have had about 650 emails, judging by my normal amount for a week when I came back, and I had 300. Why? Because I wasn't sending emails, and so therefore I wasn't getting emails back from the ones that I sent. So, even taking a break reduces your input. All right, so now we've reduced the input to our inbox, and now we're going to go through how you can effectively process the emails that you've got in there. Notice here I'm talking about processing your email, not doing everything that's in those emails. You can't effectively process your inbox and at the same time do everything that's in it. You can do a lot of it, but not everything. So to be able to process your email efficiently, you need 3 things. You need a calendar, and we all have Outlook calendar, so it's no big deal, or Google Calendar. A task manager. I'm currently using Todoist, which I like a lot, but there's many good ones out there. I personally do not think that Outlook is a good task manager, but if you don't have anything else to process at the moment, you can still go through and use that, at least to some degree. And you need somewhere to store data, store information that is contained within your email, whether that is in the cloud, whether that's on your hard disk or a shared drive, or some combination of the 3. So the first thing you're going to do is you're going to archive the old stuff. Now, what counts as being old stuff will depend on your comfort level. But realistically, if you've got 6 months worth of emails sitting in your inbox, I would take the oldest 5 months of them and just move them all into a separate folder that you're going to call old emails. They're there, you haven't lost them, you're not to feel anxious that you've kind of lost information, but at the same time, it's pretty unlikely that you're ever going to effectively process those other 5 months. Depending on how many emails you have in your inbox, maybe you want to leave the last 2 months there, or just the last 2 weeks there, and then process back from that. I've heard of people who come back from vacation and just wipe the whole lot out. I'm not advocating that. I think that would stress me out too much. But just go ahead now, make a folder that says old emails, and drag and drop as many as you feel comfortable with and dump them in that folder. You may come back to process them at some point in the future if you have time. You're watching a really boring movie, you're at a staff meeting, something like that. Make some folders in your inbox that you can, subfolders in your email that you can store stuff in. These are mine. We're going to talk about this conference call one in a minute. I have a folder called Needs Processing, which is stuff that is sitting on my task list with a date and a time associated with it, and I just need to keep the information there for when I get around to working on it. And then I have a bunch of different folders and subfolders depending on some areas of my life that I like to keep some information on. Now, this might be a way that works for you. Interestingly enough, when people have done research on this, and people actually have done research on it, if you just have one big folder which says, just labeled here as emails to keep, for all the emails that you just want to save, it's actually faster to find the email you want with the relatively good search algorithms that they have in Outlook, rather than having multiple small folders where you're kind of hunting to see where you stored something on a folder. But it depends on what you're comfortable with. The next thing you're going to do is take all the emails that are remaining in your inbox and you're going to sort by sender. So up here, arrange by from. The reason to do this is if you've got an awful lot there, this is a much more efficient way of being able to process them. So for example, this was after I came back from vacation and I could see, I'm just going to select all of those in one go and delete them rather than having to go through them individually. I'm not even going to bother reading them. Once you've got them all sorted by sender, then you're going to go through each email, or as I showed you, sometimes it's a group of emails, and you're going to go through this mental process. Is this something I can just delete? In which case, just take it straight out of there as fast as you can. Do I need to read this email first? So do I need to review it quickly? And then I'm going to delete it as soon as I've read it. Or perhaps I just need to read it and then put it into one of those folders I've just made in my email to just keep it for a record. You can make up your own rule about this. This is one that a lot of people use. If this is something that's going to take you less than 2 minutes to do it now. So don't just save it around, just sit down. It's a 2-minute thing. It's, reply to somebody with a quick note or send somebody a quick file, something like that. Find something on your hard disk, some piece of information someone did. It's going to take less than 2 minutes. Do it now. Now, maybe for you, depending on your time schedule, you're going to decide that you're processing your inbox and 1 minute is going to be your time limit, or 3 minutes is going to be your time limit, whatever you're comfortable with. If you look at the email, and if what the email really is it's a task, it's really something you're going to have to do. It's going to take you more than 2 minutes, or more than the time that you've decided you have available, then it needs to go onto your task, into your task manager, onto your task list, and out of your inbox. So here I am in my particular task manager, which is Todoist, and I'm just adding this straight as a task. I can either add it as a task here, and if you're doing it, a lot of task managers, including Todoist, have a plugin that goes straight into Outlook and straight into Gmail, so you can just usually click on the email and then click on a little tab that says add email as a task and put it straight in. Or with both this system and others, you can just email it straight to your task inbox here. So I might just forward that email, or if I'm replying to somebody, just CC it or blind CC it to my task manager inbox. It's there, all the information's there, the enclosures will usually go with it depending on your system, and I can just delete it, or if I really want to, I can, or if I want to, I can just put it in a to be processed folder. Everybody has their own threshold for what they want sitting in their inbox or how long. My own personal rule is if I'm not going to get to it, if it's a task I need to do, and I'm not going to get to it in the next 24 hours or 48 at the most, I'm going to get it out of my inbox and I'm going to get it into my task manager. Maybe for you, it might be if I'm not going to get to it in the next week or perhaps the next 12 hours, you take it out. But don't leave things sitting into your inbox that you're not going to get to for another 2 weeks. What about stuff that's related to meetings or appointments? Well, if it's just an accept meeting through Outlook, that's a quick click and then it's gone. If it's something you have to put in manually, just put it into your calendar. If you're not using something like a WebEx Outlook plugin, then all your conference call details are going to arrive as emails, and you can either spend a lot of time trying to find that particular email when the meeting comes around several weeks later, or you can deal with it effectively now. So I would suggest either you copy and paste the contents of that email regarding the conference call directly into your appointment notes field, or, and this is what I tend to do, is I just drag that email over to a folder I have that says conference calls and doodles. And it has a limited number of emails within it. I always know I can just go in there, find my conference call details pretty quick, and then once I've had the conference call, I just delete it. Does this email in my inbox have an enclosure that I need to save? So if so, download it onto your hard disk into the appropriate folder or onto the cloud where you want it and save that information. Now, often it's the body of the information text rather than enclosure is the information you want to save somewhere. And so you've got a couple of options in this case. You can save into one of those folders we talked about. So you've read it, reviewed it, and saved it, or answered it and then saved it. Or you can do what I do, and I'm going to send that to Evernote. For those of you who haven't used Evernote, I highly encourage you to try it. I'm going to talk a little bit more about it at the end of this presentation for those who want to hear about it. But it's basically a information saving cloud-based service that can be accessed across multiple devices. And for me, one of its huge advantages is being able to send these emails I get to Evernote. It'll save the contents, it'll save the enclosures, and I can search them very effectively afterwards. So this is why a lot of my information that's contained in an email is going to be saved. Obviously, anything that has patient-sensitive HIPAA-related material, you don't want to save it to the cloud. And in that case, you're better deleting it or saving it in Outlook, although that has its own inherent insecurities. Perhaps when you look at this email, this is something you can delegate to someone else. It's kind of landed up in your email, but really you need to go and send it to your secretary to do, admin assistant or one of your colleagues. In that case, just send it straight onto them before you delete it. I would suggest, if this is something you need to follow up, that you also CC it to your task manager, and then you'll know to follow up with that person because it will appear there. So how often should you process your email? Well, it depends on how many you get, and it depends on your comfort level of leaving things, and it depends on how time critical the stuff that lands up in your inbox. The trouble with having notifications on is that email always gets pushed to the top of our list of priorities. So we're working on a project, we see an email come, and we stop what we're doing, we answer that email, or deal with that email. Takes us sort of 5 or 10 minutes to get back to what we're doing, even though the project was probably a much more important thing to be working on than that particular email. So turn off notifications and bulk process. Bulk processing is so much more efficient than dealing with emails individually as they come. So maybe it'll be once a day, could even be once every other day, or maybe it's 3 times a day, but it depends on who you are and what you're doing. I also suggest that whatever time of the day is your most creative and productive, and for some of people like me, it's the morning, other people, it's the evening, don't waste that on answering email. Use that time, because answering email, generally speaking, does not need the kind of creative part of your brain. Use that time to really get projects moving. Get the paper written you needed to do, or the protocol written, or whatever it happens to be, the talk written. Save answering email for the less productive times. So how fast can you process your inbox with a little practice? So I recently had a chance to be able to experiment with this, because I did actually, as I said, turn off my email on all my devices for a week. It was very therapeutic. And I only had 276 left when I came back. Within 40 minutes, I was down to 36, 0 within 90 minutes. And these were processed, and I used those rules exactly as I've gone through with you now. And it felt pretty good. So now you know how to get your Inbox Zero Nerd Merit Badge. And now it's your turn. This is where in the workshop I would have everybody working on their own emails for 15-20 minutes to try and get some idea of how to use these concepts. But obviously, for a YouTube video, I'm not going to sit here for 15 minutes. So if I were you, I would pause this presentation at this point with this slightly scary mind map. But this is what you're going to work through. Sit with your inbox here and just go through this one by one. Look at every email and ask yourself these questions. Can I delete it without doing anything with it? In which case, delete it. You may want to read it first, but then delete it. Is it junk mail? In which case, I'm either going to unsubscribe from it, or if it's something you might want sometime, you're going to set up one of those rules I talked about. Does it just need a quick reply? In which case, just quickly reply it. Is this particular email something I can do in 2 minutes? In which case, do it and then delete it. Does it relate to something that needs to go on your calendar? In which case, add it on. Is this a task? If it is a task, then put it in your task list. And if you need to save the information that's associated with this email, you can either have it saved within your task list, depending on what your task manager is. You can save it in Evernote, or you can save it in a to be processed folder, separate from your inbox. Do I need to save attachments? Download them, then get rid of your email. Is there information within your email body itself that you need to save? In which case, I would suggest you save it to Evernote, or if you don't use Evernote, you can save it into a separate folder. Is this somebody else's job? Delegate it. So sit and work through your inbox using those steps. Just a few very brief things about Evernote. There is tons about Evernote out there on the web that you can check. They have some very good videos and tutorials on their site. And it's well worth a try. It's free. Even the paid version is about $5 a month. It gives you a little more storage, a little bit more abilities with it, but even the free version is very good. So what is it? It's really a cloud-based file system. It works on a series of notebooks. Your notebooks can be either personal or shared with other people. So I have my personal notebooks, and I have notebooks which are shared with a number of other people that I work either locally or nationally with, and that we exchange information or store information there. Within notebooks, you have individual notes. The notes can have text in them. They can have the emails in it. You can email directly to Evernote. You can put images in, PDFs in, other files can be embedded in it. Hyperlinks to other places in Evernote, other notes in Evernote, or to web links. You can even put voice notes in. And these notes will be synchronized across any devices you have Evernote on, so I can access it. I can access it anywhere that I can access the web, but it also has apps that go onto tablets and onto smartphones. So Evernote allows a very flexible kind of filing system. You can either use a series of cascading notebooks, similar to a series of embedded folders that you might have on your hard disk, or you can use a series of tags. Tags are labels, little pieces of metadata, similar to you use on something like Instagram. And you can have as many of these as you want, or you can have none of them, and you can apply multiple tags to any one note if you think it's going to help you find it faster. Which of these you use, or whether you use both is up to you. I actually started off with a cascading notebook system, and then I changed to having only two personal notebooks. One is my inbox that all my emails go to, that I send to Evernote, and the other one is my main notebook. And I use a series of tags, and I can find pretty much anything in 10, 15 seconds. And the reason I can find things so quickly is it has a really good search system embedded in it. So the search system will allow you to search by those tags if you've used them, the contents, the dates, the titles, any attachments you have with them on the note. The paid version will allow you to search the text of PDFs and so on. So it's a really nice system. So just to give you one example of how I use it, this is I make a note for an itinerary for all of the trips I go on to major conferences. And I have a template, and I just copy that template across when I make a new one. So this is my itinerary for a recent trip I took to a Renkin meeting. And what do I have here? I have fields that I just copy and paste, and this is a hyperlink to all my travel information for my flight and for my hotel in this case. And as I get the confirmations when I book the hotel and I book the flight, I just forward these to Evernote, and then I put a hyperlink to the Evernote that contains that. I have some information about the area, my registration information helps finding all these when you're putting in your reimbursements as well. Programs, for example, my speaker guidelines. This is a link to the Excel file that has the list of attendees. Here's a link to my a couple of the talks that I'm going to give, and so on. I will put all the agendas for different meetings I have, and I just have this one page. I will go to this one page before my meeting, and I know that I have everything on there that I need for the whole meeting. So it's just one example of how to use it. I'm not going to talk any more about Evernote. This YouTube is not supposed to be about Evernote, but I just kind of want to put that in your mind as a means of helping you deal with your email. Thank you for listening.